Want to play chess online or learn how to improve? Join us at the #1 chess destination in the world, chess.com. With hundreds of thousands of people playing at any moment, you'll quickly find a game with someone at your level, whether you're a total beginner or a grandmaster. You can play games at any pace against friends, other members, or one of our many computer personalities. Chess.com makes improving fun and easy. Sharpen your game with tactics puzzles and enhance your strategy with our videos and lessons by top masters. Learn from your own games with Chess.com's easy-to-use analysis tool. Regardless of your skill level, Chess.com has all you need to take your game to the next level. Chess.com is your go-to source for chess news, live coverage of tournaments, events, and everything in between. Experience Chess.com anytime and anywhere, whether you're at home on your computer or on the go with our mobile apps. Signing up is free and easy, so what are you waiting for? Join Chess.com today.
Welcome everyone, this is FIDE Grand Prix 2022 final tournament where we have 16 players fighting for the best prize and also Grand Prix points. I'm Women Grandmaster Tsatsalashvili and I'm honored to be joined by Grandmaster Robert Hess. Welcome, Robert.
Oh, thank you once again for joining me, Ketty. We had a great day one yesterday. I think day two will be even better.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Let's very quickly take a look at the round one recap. And once again, remember what happened in the first round, as it was so exciting for us and for the viewers as well.
It certainly was. Leonard Dominguez, he was fighting back and forth with Daniil Dubov, and eventually he won the game thanks to an inaccuracy by Dubov, so he delivers in his group. Levon Aronian, I mean, Ketty, that was a marvelous display of opening preparation, and then in the end, the endgame technique.
Yes, and also in the game of Predke and MVL, that was one of the first game where MVL just grabbed all the pieces and the pawns possible, and it didn't work out for him, and he resigned really early, and his chances to win the group now is smaller and smaller.
That's right. He scored 7 Grand Prix points in his first leg that he played in, and Predke just destroyed him. We don't use the word pummel lightly. That was a miniature. That was a very quick, decisive game, and we mentioned the Grand Prix points. So, Ketty, they're all fighting for those 13 Grand Prix points here in Berlin.
Yes, let's once again take a very quick look. What the winner gets 13 points and the runner will get 10 points. Those two are for the winner, and for the runner-up, they gonna be the two finalists. And let's very quickly take a look at the leaders board. Who wants to get these points the most? And here we have Richard Robert. He had already played 2 Grand Prix tournaments. Now he's sitting back at home watching the games and hoping best for him. But we have here Hikaru Nakamura playing the last leg here, and he hopes to get 13 points. Why not? And the 10 points. Dimitri Andrikin is out of the competition for personal reasons, and we do have Levon Aronian also in the group A. So Anish Giri also has a very good chances, as well as Leonard Dominguez, and Maxim Vachier has to put things together and fight back in the rest of the rounds. Robert, let's very quickly take a look at the Crows table and check out who are the leaders in the groups.
Yeah, we had 4 winners, and there's 1 per group. Levon Aronian won that excellent game over Hikaru Nakamura. And then the Russian players, Yesipenko and Oparin, they drew their game, so they sit a half point behind. In Group B, we had Leonard Dominguez with that huge win over Daniil Dubov, while Vincent Keimer with the white pieces, he had a peaceful game against Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. In Group C, Alexander Predke had the game of the round in a way by just dominating Maxime Vachier, the super grandmaster from France. He really didn't stand a chance. And then we had Wesley So. He neutralized Sam Shanklin's opening advantage. It was very slight. He covered the D-file, gave away a pawn, held the rook end game. And then finally, last and certainly not least, we had Nikita Vityugov winning a very nice game against Amin Tabatabaei, while Yu Yangyi and Anish Giri, Ketty, they went swinging at each other. It was up and down, both sides had chances, and then they agreed to a draw.
At the moment when we thought that things were going to heat up, But they seems like they don't want to risk too much in the first round because they have to play more 5 rounds at this stage. But let's quickly take a look. What are the matchups for today? And Robert, what will be the match that we will be focused mainly today?
Okay, well, so many good options here. It's really hard to decide because you have Levon Aronian with the white pieces once again against Grigorio Parin. That's a very important game. Game of the day, though. I mean, I'm looking from left to right into the middle there. Let's go with, I don't know, Katie, you tell me.
Don't do that. I think very interesting will be the match of Sam Shankland and MVL, as MVL now is really in must-win situation. The draw losses, that's not very good for him. Another match which I would love to see is young player Kmart against well-experienced Grandmaster Dominguez over here. So yeah, very excited for that match as well. But we gotta see the first move, Roberts, very soon. All this information, if our viewers are curious, what is this tournament? What are the regulations, the points, who are the participants? All of this can be checked at go.chess.com/FIDE GP 2022. And also, you guys, now you have a chance to vote. For that, you need to go to chess.com/events, navigate to the tournament, select a game, click vote, and guess the results. The voting ends in very quickly after 10 moves. So we have seen a lot of games blitzing out in the opening. So you guys go right now, take this chance and vote the results. And Robert, it's time to take a very short break for us, and we will be back before the first moves are done. So you guys stay with us. We'll be back soon. Welcome back, everyone. Now we are waiting for the first moves to be made. Let's very quickly bring the bird's eye view and wait the first moves. Robert, what do you think? What do we have the first moves here? E4, D4, knight moves, C4.
I thought you were going to make me choose how many games will be decisive, because that's the question you asked me yesterday. And I just, not to gloat, but I was exactly correct.
You are correct. So I know your answer today: 4 draws and 4 decisive results. Again.
Ooh, I wasn't going to go. Is that what you think?
Yeah.
You think 4 and 4 again? All right, let me think. I'm looking at the pairings. I'm trying to figure out which matchups do I think might be decisive. I'm going 3 wins, 5 draws today.
All right, let's see. We're waiting for the first moves to be made. It's already 3 p.m. Central European time. Players are now at a playing venue in Berlin, where they have been already for the first leg, and those were mostly the same players and the participants. And Robert, yesterday was a special day for Andrei Yasipenko, as he turned 20 years old. So happy birthday to Andrei, and we wish him the best in chess career.
And we can no longer call him a teenager. And I see the moves are being played in these games, so the players are off. Andrei Yasipenko's belated birthday present is facing off against Hikaru Nakamura with the black pieces. And Yasipenko was Hikaru's biggest challenger in the first Grand Prix leg. In fact, he almost won the group, but it was Hikaru Nakamura in the end who made it through. So Yasipenko, he is no longer a teenager, but he is no slouch. He's a very strong player. We know he beat Magnus Carlsen in the Vikonsay event, Tata Steel 2021. So here with the black pieces, early start to the game. We'll see if he goes for a Queen's Gambit decline setup or for the Nimzo setup with Bishop to B4.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and Robert, Hikaru has to cover yesterday's his lose. Do you think it's easy process for him to just forget what happened yesterday and focus fully today's game?
It's never easy to rebound from a loss. I know that at this level, all the players, they say, we're professionals. We just have to get over it next day, next game. But it's not just that he lost the game. It's who he lost to. And he lost to Levon Aronian, who is just right behind him in the Grand Prix standing. So if Levon wins the group, Hikaru is just probably going to be out of the running. I feel that strongly about Levon's chess thus far. Of course, if Hikaru gets second place in the group, then he still has a pretty good chance as long as Levon doesn't keep winning matches. But you don't want to lose to Levon Aronian if you're Hikaru Nakamura. And for Levon, well, he was placed in the exact group he wanted to be in because he controls his own destiny.
Yes, there was an interview yesterday I watched. The question was about how they fail to play in the same group as they are the direct competitors. And Levon said that they have played so many games and they like to play against each other. So he enjoys this. And and Hikaru was just giggling about this and didn't make any comment about this question.
I think Hikaru enjoyed it a little more before yesterday's game, if he enjoyed it at all. But of course, these two are great players. And Hikaru chooses this move, Bishop to D2, by the way, Ketni. A very quiet setup from Hikaru. First playing E3, if we just go back to this moment here, where Queen C2, called the Queen C2 Nimzo, very apt name here. That is a very popular choice. I mean, E3 is the most popular, but Queen C2 is, you'll often see that. And after Castle, Bishop D2 is very rare. I mean, Bishop to D3 is the main line. It just develops the bishop first. Knight E2 is extremely common as well, just to reinforce this knight on C3 with a piece rather than with the pawn. And Bishop D2 does the same thing, but it's not developing your king side. So I'm curious what Hikaru has planned out here, because when I see the move Bishop D2, my first instinct is to strike in the center with C5 or D5. And an alternative is to play the more quiet, solid B6, Bishop B7, and try to take control of this diagonal.
Mhm. You're saying about that the bishop d3 knight ge2 is the most popular move. Then bishop d2 it's not so much, and I can bring up the statistics here. Bishop d3 has been played 10,000 times and more. Knight g2 was also played about this number, and bishop g2 has been played about like 400 times. So this is what you actually mentioned, bishop g2. d2 is not so most played move here, but Robert, I have to admit that I've seen these moves recently, where top players are just playing bishop d2 and trying to avoid the main line here in Nimzovich.
It could be a smart decision because Andrei Yesipenko has proven that he can compete with the best players on the planet. He himself is a super grandmaster despite his young years. And, we see this position, it's solid. He now plays b6. He can play bishop b7. He's controlling the e4 square, fighting for the center. And of course, c5 will be an option for him later in this game. So not too much to note at this early stage, but Hikaru sometimes has fantastic preparation. It may not be the most popular line, but he goes for deep lines that he has worked out with the second. Yesterday, it didn't go his way in one of those deeply prepared lines because Levon deviated and Hikaru didn't respond perfectly. But right now, early stages, White, of course, is doing just fine.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the pawns in the center has been traded. This is still the theory here. Let's very quickly bring the bird's eye view because something super crazy is happening there. I don't know if this is a theory or not. The game of Maxim Vachier-Lagrave and Sam Shankland in Group C seems to be strange to me.
I would guess that this is somewhat theoretical because Sam Shankland playing very quickly, having almost 5 more minutes than he started with, and this position, it's got to be preparation. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is Sam Shankland's preparation. If we go back how we got here, it is a standard Berlin affair, and kind of weird to say that when they're in Berlin, and not talking about relationships, but nope. Anyway, it is just a Berlin mainline opening where White is sacrificing a pawn, gets it back on e5, trades the queens, and once we're here, Black has the compromised pawn structure, double pawns in the c-file, but has the pair of bishops as compensation. So this is a fighting opening. Sam Shankland, the end of the second leg of the Grand Prix, said, I had the black pieces in that final game against Sasha Grishuk. I wish I had more winning chances. And the Berlin is as combative of an opening as you get. The Najdorf is more tactical, but the Berlin is really an opening where both sides can try to play for the full point. So h3, bishop d7, played by Shankland here. That allows the king to go to c8, and the king gets off the d file before problems can reach it. And then king c8, g4, makes perfect sense. You're kicking the knight back, and the knight has only the e7 square to go. You don't want to go in the rim where White could take it or leave it and say it's offside. Knight e7, knight g5. And this is why we're getting to the position we saw in the game, because this pawn on f7 is threatened, and the only way to defend it is bishop to e8, because Ketty, the move f6 is terrible, and you see how terrible it is. The eval bar goes up. After knight f7, you're attacking the rook, only move rook g8, and if my rook could go to d8, that's checkmate. So that's why Black was forced by bishop e8 first, because here e6, it's a free pawn, but it's also a free checkmate back there.
It's a beautiful checkmate, and Black can't do anything against this. And that's the game over in the scenario that Black doesn't really want to have. So instead of this f6, here Sam Shankland was first to play bishop to e8. And after f4, White wants to get more space advantage on the king side. We do have here f5 move. He's just ignoring this knight on g5, and he just goes to f5 move. So what's the idea of this move?
Well, I think he's challenging directly this kingside pawn structure, and it may seem that knight e6 goes for the same checkmate, and if Black doesn't see it, which obviously Sam will, then it would work. But black has this move bishop d7. And now we can really see why f5 was played, because black is trying to challenge white's setup here. Black has the only light square bishop on the board. White has an extra pawn. If you cut the board in half, just if we go back to the live position, if we cut the board along the d file, white has the 4-on-3 advantage on the king side. So white is trying to use those pawns, gain space, but because black has the only light square bishop, you can apply pressure immediately here. And with the knight on g5, Ketty, it's in the pawn's way, so that pawn can't even move. So there will be times where h5 can also be thrown in just to force some trades over on the king side. And in particular, you want to get this rook involved.
Yes, and Robert, we do have here the line in the in the middle of the board. Look at us being so prepared for explaining positions like that. This is really nice to explain how important it is to have the control over all the board, not to have some parts, divided parts, and play only one side of the board. So you say this is still the theory after f5, and but Emil is taking his time, right? He's thinking longer than Sam.
Sometimes theory is relative to a certain player. I think that this is preparation on Sam's part, and MVL is looking at this like, oh, I didn't study this for this game, but the thing about Maxime is he's obviously a fantastic player. Look at the rating next to his name. We know at some point he's number 2 in the world. I mean, he's a monster in all time controls. But he's also quite predictable in his opening choices. He plays the same openings over and over and over again. He chose a different line yesterday. He paid the price for it. So he's going back to his typical repertoire where he's in his comfort zone. That makes him easier to prepare for, but it also means he knows his lines very deeply. Now, Sam, knowing that Maxime plays the Berlin as white all the time, he chooses this specific line, and it's clear that he is either better prepared or he remembers his initial moves, and Maxime is trying to recall them. But it's a big decision right now. So Maxime is doing the right thing for everyone out there who, they know, your openings, but then you get to a point where you're not sure. You don't need to rush, because right now, white, we have to remember what black's last move was, pawn f5. White can take en passant, and this is the only time you can do that, but that's a very big decision, because once you take en passant and black takes back, you have a 3-on-2 advantage over here. But we can see that now some lines are opening up for black's pieces, and black may be able to strike on the king side where he's in fact down a pawn. So I'm really happy that Maxime is taking his time in this moment. Will he bring his king up to g3? That's a typical plan. Will he just develop his queen side with a move like knight to c3? Will he play knight e6 and, yes, threaten checkmate, but maybe also take a bishop? So there are many different options here. It's clear that Maxime has not memorized his options or doesn't recall them. So it's very, very good that as a chess player to sit and try to calculate right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point, Robert, that you're bringing up. Let's once again take a look at the bird's eye view and check out other games. What is really interesting here, I can see that the game of Tabatabai and Anish Giri in Group D, we have still Queen f3 on this board, but now it's not Anish who plays Queen f3, but it's his opponent. Let's very quickly take a look at that game and see what is happening.
Okay, well, there's a queen on f3 and there's no bishop on c8. So I'm pretty sure I know how that queen got there. The bishop went to g4 and captured a knight. And just to prove that that's what happened, we saw it was a Slav, and knight f3, knight f6, knight 3, a6. So one of these Chevenenko Slavs where black makes this move a6, which seems strange, but it does support the pawn push to b5, and that allows black to gain space on the queen side in many of these variations. It's funny, Ketty, do you have any experience either playing or against this variation of Slav?
Against.
I enjoy playing against it, honestly, at least in theory. I look at it, I'm like, wow, I play c5, I take over all the dark squares at some point. I'm feeling good about this, right? e3, e6, you can play c5 and go for this pawn chain, connect 4, taking over the dark squares. But when you face somebody like a Gadakomsky or that type of player who's super strong, but also knows these lines very well, you know that they're at some point going to break with pawn e5. And I just have struggled. Even though I like the position in theory, in practice, I've had a difficult time.
Oh yeah, e5 is the move that I'm mostly afraid here in this pawn structure, because I know after e5, e4 will come, or it takes d4 will come, and that's gonna get all the attentions of my pieces. So I always try to go against it. I even came up with some ideas first to develop my bishop to avoid e5 coming, and then to play rest of the moves here. So here we have two moves basically, c5 and what happened in the game, something like c takes d5 and to have exchange Slav position. So why do you think that white here made this decision that he went to the Slav defense, where black really needs this pawn on a6, and it's quite useful move pawn to be here as it controls b5 square.
It's one of these decisions where I think Tabatabai, after a loss, he wants a solid game, because if we look at the position, it's white had this move knight c3 and black played a6. So white is kind of a development tempo ahead, but a6, as you're pointing out, is a very useful move. So it's not like black played a rook, I don't know, some random move that wasn't helpful. a6 is a very useful move. So the game continued bishop f4, white now ahead by 2 pieces in development, knight c6, e3, and bishop g4. So e6 would shut this bishop in. Anish says, I'll give you the bishop pair as long as when I play e6, I don't have a passive bishop. So h3, chop, chop, and now e6 and bishop d3. So Ketty, at first glance, I tend to like having the bishop pair, but it's a closed position. So this light square bishop, while it stares at h7, which is well defended, it doesn't seem to have the brightest future just yet.
Mm-hmm. Robert, to me, these kind of positions, the c pawns being exchanged, it's very equal drawish positions, and known that it has this kind of character here. And I'm thinking that Tabatabai chose this opening to go against Anish Giri, as I now remember their first game in the previous leg. Tabatabai could get some initiative with an active play, but he chose the way to trade as much pieces as possible and then have a draw. And do you think this might affect the game, like, because Tabatabai at this age plays against Anish Giri, who is a world-class player already, and Tabatabai might be okay to make a draw?
You know, the psychology of it is quite interesting, because Anish Giri needs to win his group. Amin Tabatabai is not going to make his way to the candidates at this point in time through the Grand Prix. So